Okay, hey guys. The Human Centipede 2 full sequence. Finally, I'm able to do the review of an uncut version. This came out in America on, suitably or not, on Valentine's Day. Listed as an unrated director's cut. I was slightly concerned that this might still be an edited or cut version. For example, the Serbian film was released unrated, although it was cut, as you'll see in my other review. This is fully uncut and includes everything that was taken out by the BBFC, such as more explicit details of teeth being knocked out, people being stapled together, the masturbation with sandpaper. You see his penis, you see the blood, you see the baby getting squashed in this version, and the full rape sequence, including the wrapping of the barbed wire, as illogical as that may be. This isn't the first time that the uncut version's been available. In the UK, as everyone will surely be well aware, this film has had this release of this film has turned into a complete saga and a farce, so far as the BBFC is concerned. They initially banned it, I think it was back in July last year, saying that there's no way they could see it ever being released uncut, even if it was subsequently cut by the distributor and resubmitted. They didn't see any way it could be released because it was a danger to society. Roughly 3 months later, they then decided, you know what, if we take out 2.5 minutes, it's not such a danger to society, never mind the overriding theme still being there, we can release it, it's fine, no problem. Which I don't understand. It's absolutely ludicrous. The BBFC have undermined their own authority with this film. They've shot themselves in the foot. They took out, I think the distributor took out approximately 2 minutes, and then the BBFC decided, you know, if you take out an extra 30 seconds or so, then it's okay. Even 2.5 minutes of cuts is almost 2 minutes less than was cut from a Serbian film last year, and that was released one time, no problem. So far as I'm aware, it wasn't resubmitted. Took out 4.5 minutes, and you can release it. I don't understand why this one has been so difficult to get hold of. The British release I have got hold of, it's cut, it's edited, although it's more complete than the initial online American version, which took out the entire rape sequence. The UK release does feature the rape sequence, but not in such explicit detail. But it's still edited, and it's still worth getting hold of the fully uncut version. Surprisingly, in a surprising twist, Bounty Films released the fully uncut version. The first time that the fully uncut version of the Human Centipede 2 was officially available worldwide was to the UK and Australia. After all of the censorship issues here in the UK, it was actually released to this country back in December online on Bounty Films. I rented it and can confirm that that is the fully uncut version. So far as I'm aware, that's still available. I think it's bountyfilms.com. You can find it online. That is the fully uncut version. You can get that if you live in the UK. You can pay through PayPal. If you've got a PayPal account, you can pay with a credit card, but you can't go into the shops and buy it on DVD. Such is the world we live in. Either way, this was the one I was really waiting for. This is why I rented it online rather than buying the download, because I wanted an actual official DVD, which was finally released, fittingly or not, depending on your opinion, on Valentine's Day. Listed as the unrated director's cut. I was a bit skeptical because the Serbian film was also listed and released as unrated, but it was still cut. The Human Centipede 2 unrated director's cut Region 1 DVD and Blu-ray, I can now confirm, are fully uncut. This is the full version. It includes the full masturbation with sandpaper sequence, baby squashing, the full rape sequence, including barbed wire. Everything's in there. It's a good release to get hold of. Got hold of this on Amazon.co.uk. There's a seller who's selling it and shipping it from within the UK, so that's worth getting hold of. It's around about 22 quid. It's a bit steep, but still nice to get hold of. I think this was released in the UK back in November, 21st of November. Didn't come out in America until 14th of February, so there's been a bit of a wait. It's been worth it really to get hold of the uncut version. So onto the film. Grossest film ever made, etc., etc., disgusting. I can understand the censorship issues and the notoriety. However, overall, as a film, compared to the first one, it has to be said that this is a disappointment. I think the acting, particularly the main character, forgotten what his name is, the guy who plays Martin, he is very good. He's very convincing. Intentionally or not, he's hilarious. as is the woman who plays his mother, his ill-fated mother. But I think it's in the hilarity that this film can be redeemed in a way. This is, in my opinion, this is essentially, first and foremost, Human Centipede 2 is a black comedy. Anyone who watches this film and isn't laughing their head off on more than one occasion, I think those are the people the BBFC is concerned about. And in my opinion, I like to be a bit more optimistic. I think that most people are going to laugh at this film rather than take it seriously. In a way, this film does act as a comment on censorship, and it illustrates how ridiculous the notion that someone is going to watch a film such as The Human Centipede or The Human Centipede 2 and copy it. It's very explicit in this portrayal. Martin, for example, at the beginning of the film, is shown to be watching the first film, The Human Centipede, on DVD. He's obsessed with it. He's depicted later on in the film masturbating over it. He makes a scrapbook, and it's become his ultimate goal in life to make his own Human Centipede, because his life is this is the hilarious. We find our way into the hilarity of this film through the appallingly disturbing and depressing life that Martin leads. He's short, he's overweight. He's insulted continually by every other character in the film. His mother, his would-be victims who come into the underground car park where he works. He's got a dark, dingy, horrible, boring job. Just sits there watching TV every day, obsessed with the first film. And then in his attempt to capture the power of the Doctor, reflected there in the glasses from the first film, who obviously he aspires to be but never could be, physically or otherwise, he tries to make his own Human Centipede. The way in which he goes about doing this is absolutely ludicrous. This film is so full of plot holes, and it's so implausible, even once you get past the notion of a Human Centipede, which arguably is more realistically depicted in this version, where it doesn't work, and it's a crazy idea to begin with, than in the original, where it actually does seem for a while to be working. Even once you get past the idea of a Human Centipede, this film is so illogical and unbelievable that it can only be regarded as a failing. It is essentially and primarily a comedy, but it's targeted and marketed as an extreme horror film. It is based upon that. It has to be regarded as pretty much a failure, at least so far as continuity and the story. Not continuity, but so far as the story and the believability is concerned. To be horrified and to be affected by a horror film, you really have to, at least believe in the plight of the characters, and this is absolutely ludicrous. Martin collects victims by shooting them or knocking them out by hitting them over the head with a crowbar. He appears to live in a computer game world where you can smack someone over the head with a crowbar as many times as you want, and they'll keep waking up again, no problem, no injuries. I admit a couple of them do die, but on the whole, if you just whack them on the head and they'll come back to life, no problem. He's walking around this car park, which is continually full of cars, but the only people we see are his victims, and he's constantly shooting through car windows to take them out, hitting them on the head, chasing a prostitute up the stairs, and apparently there are no CCTV cameras, there are no other witnesses to prevent him from doing this. The whole idea of that is absolutely ridiculous. It is completely implausible, doesn't make any sense. However, the only way out of this that you could get, the only argument that you could make, is that the shot at the very beginning of this film, of him sitting there watching the first film on his computer, is replicated at the end. Now, it would be fair to say maybe that suggests that this is all a fantasy. The whole film is his fantasy of what could I do? If I wanted to do this, if I wanted to become the Doctor and my own Human Centipede, how would I do it? Maybe it's the fantasy, and the implausibility of this fantasy is a critique of censorship, etc. But even that, you have to strain to accept that. For example, a lot of horrible things happen to Martin in this film, culminating in the centipede up the arse, which he could fantasize about being beaten up by the guy who plays the loud music upstairs in order to fantasize further about getting revenge upon this guy by knocking his teeth out. There's no reason for him to fantasize about having a centipede shoved up his arse. That's outrageous. No one's going to fantasize about that. There's nothing for him to gain from that. which kind of takes away the idea that this is a fantasy. If this is not a fantasy, there are so many holes, plot holes in this film, it's absolutely appalling. So, I mean, compared to the original is much more plausible. It sounds, Human Centipede, plausible, but the original is much more believable, I think. It's better filmed. I think Tom Six did say, to be fair, that he wanted to film the original in a slow, smart, smooth fashion to represent the character of the Doctor, and to film the second one in a more messed up fashion to represent the character of Martin. However, that doesn't disguise his failings here. Tom Six in The Human Centipede 2 comes across as a child who is trying to think of the nastiest possible things he can imagine in order to make a controversial and notorious film, much in the way that, in my opinion, Fred Vogel did with August Underground. Awful, diabolical series of films, completely implausible, completely unbelievable. You can't buy into the acting, you don't buy into the special effects, it's appalling. At least here, Tom Six has found a brilliant actor. The performance from the guy who plays Martin in particular is outstanding. He creates a brilliant character. The special effects are also outstanding in a depiction of such extreme violence, and it is such extreme violence that makes this an interesting film and a worthy film to get hold of if you're interested in extreme horror. However, is this a good quality film? No, not in my opinion. This is a child trying to be disgusting. In many respects, it's hard to believe that the same director made this as the first one. And it's clearly Martin's story's been put together, so quickly in order to get to the nastiness. It's almost as though he's not. Six isn't really bothered too much about the plot. He wants to get to the nastiness. And I mean, the nastiness, yeah, it's extreme. It's the baby being squashed, obviously, the rape scene, but even the explicit scenes. I mean, raping someone with barbed wire wrapped around your penis is absolutely ludicrous. It obviously cannot be done. You see the shot with him having wrapped it around, and it's physically impossible. Seeing the pregnant woman water breaking, giving birth to the child, and then squashing it underneath the foot pedal in the car when she tries to escape is absolutely ludicrous. It's so hard to take it seriously that it actually affects your enjoyment of the film. People don't behave in a normal way. Martin kidnaps his victims. He kidnaps them. He ties their arms and their legs and leaves them lying on the floor in the warehouse. They don't try to escape. They don't roll away from him when he's trying to cut their clothes off or anything. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that they wouldn't. When he's stapling them up towards the end of the film, they just lie there. They're not tied to the floor or weighted down. They could move and stop it. They just lie there in pain, screaming. I mean, it's stuff like this and a whole lot more that lets this film down. So it's good to get. It's interesting. It's good to get hold of. Yes, it does push boundaries, but it doesn't do so in an intelligent way. I mean, one finds oneself wishing for the good old days. The Exorcist, Straw Dogs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left. These were really, really good films, banned here in the UK, but when they were subsequently released, it was culturally beneficial. Is The Human Centipede 2 culturally beneficial? I don't think it is. I mean, in the same sense as The Bunny Game, in my opinion, we're not losing out too much by having these films banned. I disagree with banning films. I think they should be made available. Maybe it's a good example of our culture, a disturbing example of why, that's what fascinates me, why we find these, why these films are so popular and why they're banned and the reasons behind them being banned and should they be banned. I don't agree with censorship, so I'm glad to get hold of the uncut versions, but is the Human Centipede 2 a cultural event? No, it's not. Compared to a Serbian film and Grotesque, most recently banned or censored films, this is nowhere near as good. So ultimately this is a disappointment. I look forward to the third one anyway. Apparently Tom Six has said the third one is going to make the second one look like a Disney film, so that should be extremely interesting if we can get hold of it. If that is the case, it'll probably be banned everywhere, so we'll be waiting a long time to get hold of it. But yeah, The Human Centipede 2, a great concept, great idea, very well acted, but ultimately a disappointing film. Nevertheless, worth getting for the collection if you're into extreme horror films or banned films. Let me know what you think. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with all of that, but that's the way it is. It's a nice cover, this one, better than the UK version, a bit more explicit. to be found on Amazon, and yes, this is fully uncut, worth getting hold of.